Yes, fight fans, we are back again. Jay's Fight Talk here with my co-host, friend, and boxing oracle, Liam Tully. First and foremost, how we doing, brother?
Yeah, we're all good, mate. I sent you saw there's a bit of news coming out at lunchtime, and I slid you a little message saying, "Oh, you've
Let's
done a
go
too busy a
live.
day, mate. Should we go live tonight?" Just so much is happening at the moment, which is
Yeah, I mean,
fantastic.
it's sort of bottlenecked. It's gone from no fights to loads of fights to announcements. There's bits and bats coming off the back of the Ring Magazine Awards. There's
Yeah.
announcement retirements. There's potential fight announcements. Fights being made. Fights not being made. And so there's a lot. So this is straight talking with Jay and Liam. It's an off-the-cuff impromptu live, just off the back of some of today's announcements and some of the news that's sort of been banding around in the world of combat sports. It is primarily boxing, but as me and Liam would watch any fights, we're not averse to jumping into little bits of MMA and other combat sports, but it's primarily boxing. So we'll start at the top. I mean, it's not a shock. I thought he'd have announced it there and then, but we've had another announcement again. Tyson Fury has made a social media post this afternoon thanking us all for the journey, and he's announced his retirement. Now, forgive me if I'm taking it in jest, because it's not the first time he's done this, but I will say that I had a little interaction. I think it was with yourself and another friend of ours, another content creator on X this afternoon about it. It was DJ Pat, I think.
Yeah.
Props, DJ Pat. But basically, he was, as a lot of people are, took it sort of with a pinch of salt because Tyson Fury's done this. I think he said, it's the 87th retirement announcement. We're being flippant with that, but look, he's done this 4 or 5 times now, certainly 3. This would definitely be his 3rd. This is it. I'm done. Thanks for the memories. It's been great. I'm off to spend some time with my family, which was understandable previously. He was struggling with his mental health, and he had other battles going on outside the ring in his personal life, and his mental health wasn't the best. But the difference for me with this one, and Pat said something similar to the statement I've just made there, a little bit blasé about it. I think that this time, because of the second loss, and he's had time to digest that loss and watch it back. I know he was screaming robbery in the second one, and now he thought he'd won it by 4 rounds. We know Tyson Fury's not as green as he is cabbage looking, should I say. He's not as daft as he makes out. He's a boxing, very similar to Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was seen as this marauding monster, but he was actually a student of the game. He got brought up old school by Customado, and he studied a lot of the greats, the Henry Armstrongs, the Jack Johnsons, the Jack Dempseys. And I believe that Tyson Fury is very similar. His dad's a boxing man that came through, did the hard yards, and Tyson's been brought up that way. So the difference with this announcement to his previous announcements is I don't think Tyson Fury can motivate himself to go for second place. I think if he's not the main guy, he's not interested. If he's not competing to be the main guy, he's not interested. And unless he fights Usyk again and beats him, Tyson Fury will always be seen as one of the best. Whereas 2 or 3 years ago, he was down as the greatest of his generation, one of the greatest of all time. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, so look, I hadn't seen the announcement. You told me this afternoon, and I made the joke, oh, what, for the 87th time? Which is tongue-in-cheek, but also true, because he retired. The last time he done this was after he fought Dillian White, and he was back fighting Chisora in December. But something that's come to me this afternoon, when he made that retirement after the White fight, he done it in the ring, when he was still high on life, when he was looking around at the fact he just had 94,000 people watching him fight, and he was on this massive high, wasn't he?
Yeah.
This time he's gone away. It's been nearly a month since the fight. So he's taken that time, hasn't he? He wasn't at the Ring Awards this weekend just gone, which a lot of people were surprised about, and I was as well. I thought we'd see him there. He hasn't done any social media posts over Christmas. He's been very, very quiet. Colin is right.
Yes, Colin. You're right, Cole. Yeah, we're good. Thank you, brother.
Whilst I take it tongue-in-cheek and can think, the boy who cried wolf, if you tell lies enough time, when you're actually telling the truth, no one fucking believes you. Whilst I can understand that, Look, Fury has openly admitted that part of the reason why he came back, as well as needing to, come back from the depths of suicide and drink and substance issues, he also financially needed to secure himself. Because after the Klitschko fight, financially, he wasn't secured for life, if that makes sense. So he's made no secret about financially that is more of a motivation for him fighting. Well, he's done a Wilder trilogy, which made
he's past that point now. I mean, he's got generational wealth.
The Ngannou fight on its own would have done him enough money, and now he's done these 2 fights with Usyk, a Netflix deal, a couple of books deals, a energy drink. Paris has got book and commercial deals coming out of it.
He's set for life. No, he doesn't need a fight.
The kids are set. The kids are set. That's the reality now. So if that motivation is gone, and Tyson Fury's made no secret that money rather than the man in front of him is the most highly motivating factor for him, then walk away. He's 36, nearly 37. Yes, he probably would love to roll the dice again, but he's sitting there thinking, another 10 weeks in Marbella with Sugar Hill, going for a training camp.
It's a lot.
Look at the shape he was in for the second Usyk fight. If we're being honest, he looked like he'd rolled out of the pub an hour before the fight with how much his gut was hanging over the trunks.
Yeah.
If it wasn't there for that second Usyk fight, what's it going to be like if he was to fight AJ?
It's not that.
It's not there.
That's the thing for me. Tyson's always been about being the man, and I agree with Hawkan there. Good evening, Hawkan. Hope you're well, brother.
Good to see you.
As I said before Hawkan made that statement, for me, Tyson Fury, it's about being the number one, the main guy, the big dog. He will always be number 2 or playing for the next best because he didn't beat the man. He didn't beat Usyk. When he went to Germany and beat Klitschko, yes, it was an aged Klitschko. And yes, Klitschko wasn't the man he was 4 or 5 years ago. But look, he was dominating the division still. He was the man. Tyson went, right, and beat the man. He then went down and did what he did and came back, and not many people picked him to beat Wilder. I actually picked the draw. For the first one because I thought the shit Tyson. I just had a feeling. And he came back and beat the man. He did the unthinkable. Not only did he do the unthinkable, he did it after getting knocked unconscious in the 12th round, right? So he's always been the man up on a pedestal. Yes, he'll put himself on it. Elite athletes have to put themselves on a pedestal. They have to believe in themselves. They have to think like that. And I just think that the motivation for I think it's getting harder anyway for him to motivate himself. Like, was it Marvin Hagler that said it's harder to get out of silk sheets and silk pajamas to do your morning runs? Now he's got generational wealth and he can't beat the main guy. Does he want to do that? Or can he do that? Never mind, does he want to? Can he motivate himself? Not just physically, but mentally, because I think some of his skills allow him to not necessarily have to get to peak fitness. Tyson doesn't have that body. We saw that he was very fleshy and maybe 1.5 stone, 2 stone heavier than he should have been against Usyk because his skill set enables him to, his fast hands and his footwork and stuff. But I just don't think I don't think this is bullshit this time. I think this is as genuine as it can be, but Tyson Fury is the kind of guy that's impulsive as well. So don't be surprised if he does come back, but it's not because he wasn't telling the truth this time. It's because he's made an impulsive decision off the cuff.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've just said. And let's be, straight talking, this is called. Let's give some straight talk for a minute. Tyson Fury's last outstanding career-defining performance was Deontay Wilder 2 on the 22nd of February, 2020.
Yeah. 5 years ago.
Yeah, coming up to 5 years ago in just over 5 weeks' time. Since then, he's done Wilder 3, where, yes, he had personal stuff going on with the premature birth of his fourth or fifth kid, whatever it was, and that affected him. And we all understand that. But he went and had life or death in a modern day classic of a heavyweight fight in the trilogy with Wilder, didn't he? He then fought Dillian White, which was a crap fight. He landed the uppercut, but the push after he landed the uppercut assisted in making sure White was done after that punch, is my opinion on that night. He then decided to give his mate Del Boy a payday and danced around in the freezing December cold of Tottenham for 10 rounds and 60,000 people left with hypothermia and underwhelmed. He then went and done Ngannou and lost. Didn't lose from what the judges said, but let's call this. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. He lost to Ngannou, and now he's been done by Usyk twice. And for what it's worth, I've scored Usyk winning both of those fights on the night and watching back. I've never given Tyson Fury either of those two fights, is my honest opinion on that. So you take that into account as well. Look, Sugar Hill doesn't take no shit. We've seen him getting wound up with Tyson in the corner at fights, and he was doing the same in December. Sugar Hill is equally probably gone to him. Let's be realistic here. It ain't there anymore. I've seen it when I've been with Manny Stewart. What happens when a fighter goes on too long? Don't be one of those fighters. Get out whilst you still have the legacy you have. And I agree with you, mate. He is an addictive personality. So there is always a fear that he's going to come back. And if he does come back again, doesn't mean he doesn't mean this announcement. It just means he's made us all look like mugs again as we're now sitting here on a Monday evening talking about it. But this time feels different. I know
it does for me.
Sorry, mate. I know he ended the video with his get up there and saying Dick Turpin wore a mask, or whatever that was. He done it in such a jovial style. But would you expect Tyson Fury in a three-piece suit, shedding tears, with a big emotional statement? No.
I don't think he could do that anyway. I don't. He's not the kind of guy that would show his emotion like that. I think him being comical and comedic element to it, I think that's him expressing himself. I don't think he's going to open up and be upset about and show his true emotions. I don't mean he's not being honest with us, because I believe he is, but emotionally, I think that's his.
He expresses his emotions through himself, comedy and erratic actions, as opposed to I think this is, look, when he retired against White, I was in a living room with some of my best mates from childhood, and they went, he's gone, he's retired. And I sat there swigging a beer and went, bollocks, bullshit. I called it for what it was that night. I said, he'll fight again. And they all looked at me like I was an idiot. I had a £10 bet with 6 people and was 60 quid up come November when they announced the Chisora fight. But,
nice.
I just called it for what it was. Today, I've had the same conversation with 2 of those mates from that day. And they've gone, what do you think this time? I went, look, I told you last time it wasn't real. This time feels real. And we've made the £10 bet again. So if I'm paying 20 quid to some mates, but but the reality is, I believe that this is serious. He's 36. By the time he fights again, he'll be 37. You questioned if the love... Look, no one talks about how bad he looked against Ngannou before the first Usyk fight, because it was undisputed, because it was Usyk. We haven't had this since Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield. Oh my God, it's massive. But I was thinking in the back of my mind, was that Ngannou performance showing us that he's starting to go the other side of the hill?
Lost, yeah, he's definitely on the decline.
Definitely. But for some generous judging from Turkey and the brown envelopes in that Ngannou fight, he's on a 3-fight losing streak.
But I think it's also mental for him as well. I think mentally he's sort of half out the door. And I think that comes with the successes that he's had, as you said, the Netflix, the books. His wife's now an entity in her own right.
She's a personality.
I think his oldest daughter is a personality off the back of the documentary. If I'm honest, I watched 2 episodes. I can't watch it anymore. But
his oldest his oldest daughter on TikTok posted highlights after it came up on my For You page, scrolling one night, and it was, watch the highlights of my dad's getting robbed by corrupt officials again, and I just swiped straight past it. I mean, she's getting good clickbait, but after the first fight, she put something similar on, my dad lost this fight because of the war in Ukraine, and now this time corrupt judges. So she's her father's daughter. Should we go that far? And look, good luck. If Tyson Fury's where he was when I saw him ringside at Billy Joe Saunders, Willie Monroe Jr. in 2017, when he said he was coming back, but he was still about 28, 29 stone. He made a beer glass look like it was a flipping packet of Skittles in his hands, like the size of him at that point. I didn't think I'd see him again.
Yeah,
and he was sad. He was there in the flat cap and looked horrendous. And I remember I was sitting not far from where he'd done the interview with BT Sport as was at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, we're never seeing him again. How sad is sad is this, the fall of him? But to him to come back, do what he's done, get out now, Tyson.
Amazing, man. He'll always go down as a great. I've had the 2 interactions that were polar opposites. Do you remember when he was supposed to fight Chisora for the 2nd time in Manchester, and I think his uncle died?
Huey died, yeah.
So they were going to then have Chisora against Alexander Yusunov, And the main event, I don't know why that fell out. The main event ended up being Billy Joe Saunders and Blandamura for the European. Yeah. And I ended up sitting ringside and had a couple of weird interactions. I had an interaction with Junior and Senior Eubanks and one of the brothers, which is another story. But I photographed from meeting Tyson there, and he was ready to fight. So he was slim, and he took some photos with my son and my nephew and whatnot. And then fast forward 6 months or a year or whatever, I was at another show in Manchester. I think it was Crawler, because I'm sat sort of as close to ringside as you can be. I usually used to get decent comp seats there, like family ringside. And he looked that disheveled and that just rough that I didn't realise he was actually sat behind. I've shown you the picture where I turned round and said, "Oh, can I have a picture?" And I sort of turned round. But someone had to point. He went, "Tyson Fury sat behind us." And I'm like, "What?" And I looked over that shoulder. I didn't see him. Then I looked over that shoulder and I looked past. Didn't look the same guy that I'd met 6 to 12 months before. So, yeah, I think it's real, or as real as it can be from Tyson. You know, he could wake up tomorrow and go, "Right, I'm Rabbit, you're getting it, you little middleweight. I'm gonna smash the bodybuilder, then I'm for you. Bodybuilder, sign the contract." You know, because that's how he is. It depends what mood he's in. But look, if that was the last time we saw Tyson Fury, for me, I've got more positive memories than negative. He will go down as one of the best of his generation for me, if not the best of a bunch, other than Usyk. Certainly domestically, for me, he'll go down as one of the greats of this generation.
Because the irony is, in defeat to Usyk, that was still one of the best boxing performances of Tyson Fury's career.
He would have beaten 99.9% of the other heavyweights in the world.
Would have beaten any other heavyweight. And that was a boxing performance where he was showing that level of movement and skill and acumen
at 20
when he was overweight.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he was 20. Like, that tells you everything you need to know about him. And I want him to retire now, because if he fights Joshua in that mood, and Joshua, who's never out of shape, always training, regardless of your opinions of AJ, I reckon he would have his best chance of beating Tyson Fury is to Tyson
He's now.
Fury.
Yeah, that's how I don't want to see it, because I think he could lose
loses
that fight.
that, and then everyone will jump on, like I've just said, "Oh, he lost to Ngannou, then he lost twice to Usyk. Oh, he was shit."
I've seen
you
people
don't want to see it.
I've seen people pulling his career together. I mean, you could argue that he lost against John McDermott. You could argue that as well. You know, and Tyson was mocked. I mean, I can't believe I'm going to admit this on video, but you know, I'm all about straight talking and you know, I'll call myself out. I actually picked David Price to beat Tyson Fury if they ever boxed, when they both sort of was on the come up. As far as I was concerned, David Price had beat the shit out of him. You got to remember, Tyson Fury, there's the meme of him punching himself in the face, and he was getting knocked down every other fight, and you know, and for him to do what he's done, he's amazing. I mean, he's exceeded everybody's expectations. Maybe not his own, because he always talked a great game, even when he had shitty performances. But, you know, he's done a lot for boxing as well. He's done a heck of a lot for boxing, not just British boxing. Good evening, DJ Pat. We were talking about you earlier on. I think Fury is out this time and has hanged his gloves for good. Myself and Liam agree with you there. We've just spent 20 minutes, you know, giving him his swan song, and I think it's as true as it can be, as I said, for Tyson, who changes his mind more often than he changes his socks, probably. But we'll see. And if it is the end for him, you know, thanks for the memories.
Like you just said, mate. So the first ever Tyson Fury fight I saw was his first fight against Chisora. So that was 2011. That's the first time I saw a Tyson Fury fight. And then afterwards, I went back and, because they said on commentary about the John McDermott fight, he was lucky the first time. I've just got that scorecard up from the John McDermott fight, the one in 2009. It was only judged by the referee. That scorecard was 98-92 in Tyson Fury's favor.
Right.
Which never, I mean, Terry O'Connor, who was known for giving some interesting scorecards, old Terry. So yeah, that just tells you everything you need to know. And when he was coming up, I mean, David Price was the man. David Price dealt with Audley Harrison, Audley Harrison was over the hill at the time. It was post the David Hay debacle, but, you know, was an Olympian. He was beating up Matt Sexton, Michael Sprott, people like that who were okay at the tail end of their career, but they had been the generation of heavyweights leading up to Price and Fury coming in. Meanwhile, Tyson Fury was punching himself in the face, like you say, getting dropped all the time and getting handed decisions that he didn't really deserve. So yeah, but look what happened. David Price never recovered from the Tony Thompson debacle.
I were there.
I do wonder if Tony Thompson's wife ever recovered from what
I think she's still in a wheelchair, to be honest.
Yeah, I do wonder if she was okay.
But I met him, I think it was either the night before or the night after he was at the Liverpool Olympia. It was, do you remember Frankie Gavin and Denton Vassell? Had an absolute war. I met him there. I don't know if it was round about the times. I've got a photo somewhere of him, and he's as mad as a box of frogs, but you know.
But so just to finish my point, David Price for John McDermott once stopped him in the first round. That fight lasted 1 minute 12 seconds. He then beat, like I just said, Sam Sexton, Audley Harrison, Matt Skelton. So he was in a position where he put himself at the peak of those heavyweights, the next generation of heavyweights. Then he lost to Tony Thompson and lost his way. Meanwhile, Tyson went on the ascendancy and had, in the end, a Hall of Fame career.
Yeah,
that's the reality. It's just, yeah. I say it all the time about fighters, and I said it about Anthony Joshua, but I believe there's still something a bit more left with Anthony Joshua because of what we're seeing from him over Christmas and last weekend. He's still showing he's got something.
He's got a bit of something left, yeah.
Tyson, don't ruin your legacy. Anthony Joshua can still enhance his end legacy by coming back, if that makes sense. If he picks up some victories against the right type of fighters, he will re-enhance his legacy. Tyson Fury's legacy can only carry on going down. And what you don't want is your armchair people that only tune in for the big fights being the loudest voices in the room with a generational talent.
And I think it's easier for Joshua also because he's more of an athlete, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but Tyson's more of a fighter.
Yeah.
And even though he's got fantastic boxing skills, but predominantly he's a fighter with boxing skill set, Anthony Joshua is a manufactured athlete. And I don't just mean that aesthetically, I'm on about in general. He's an athlete. You know, he's into his sport science, and he uses the best of the. Tyson Fury's a spit and sawdust fight, Morecambe Beach, and then goes out to camps. And he does have people around him, but I believe that it's easier for AJ to go on a little bit longer. I think, and Tyson has harder fights for me as well.
It's interesting. So just on this comparison, Tyson Fury, twice he's lost to Usyk. He's never owned those losses. Anthony Joshua, for all his faults he has, he owned the Ruiz loss, came back and rectified it. He didn't own the second Usyk loss in the moment. That was his biggest head loss ever. But he has come back to own it since. And he said in interviews, look, better man, generational talent. He gave an interview on Saturday where he gave Dubois props and flowers. He just shows that he's able to accept it and want to improve.
Eventually, Tyson can't, can it? More difficult things.
Tyson, his ego doesn't lie. Casey, mate, Pat, I completely agree. Look, as much as I would love to see Katie Taylor get a Crocus swan song in front of 80,000 Islanders,
for me.
I'd also like to see her retire.
She's going to get beat by someone she shouldn't get beat by. That's what's going to happen. Someone like Chantel Cameron will knock her out or something. You know, or Serrano.
I like Chantel, but yeah, I agree. If Chantel gets that third fight and ends it by stoppage,
I wouldn't want to see that. I wouldn't want to see that, but you know,
yeah.
Who are we to tell boxers what to do?
Exactly. Look, we look forward to talking about Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua fight week in July, but for now he's retired, so we'll leave it at that. I hope he stays retired. But we've got some other good things to talk about, mate, haven't we? Are we going to go with rumoured fights first?
Yeah, let's go with rumoured fights. So we've had the Ring Magazine Awards ceremony or banquet. To be honest, I've not
both,
really.
Mate. It looks a bit like both.
I've not watched any of it because obviously we were live watching the boxing that was going on sort of simultaneously. I've seen some of the interviews and the shots, but the noise that's coming out of there, and you know, you'll stop me or agree if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing that Canelo versus Crawford is done for September. The Mexican, I think it's Mexican. It's not Cinco de Mayo. Is it Mexican Independence or something?
Mexican Independence. Yeah, Mexican Independence.
Canelo normally has them both, and he has May and September. I'm here in Vegas, September, for Canelo. We saw Turkey and Canelo arm in arm. We've seen Bud and Canelo arm in arm. We haven't actually seen Canelo and Bud together, have we? We've seen Turkey with them both. But anyway, look, the noise coming out of the the Ring Magazine awards banquet, whatever it was, get together, is that fight's done for September. I've seen an interview with Eddie Hearn and Ben Shalom. I've seen an interview with Eddie Hearn, and he's allowed Ben Shalom to be in it. He let him speak a little bit, a couple of times. But basically, they're saying that Ben versus Eubank Jr. is done. Oh, yeah. But then
£160 with a rehydration clause up to 170, which whatever. That's getting done. That's going back to the O2 by the sounds of it, which all this talk of it's going to do Spurs, it's going to do the Emirates. I think they've realised where the market.
It's not a big enough fight.
No, they've realised where the market is for it.
Yeah.
And I would have rather seen Ben fight Barrios. If I'm being honest, that O2. That O2 date that they're talking about, which was, it's a bit later, I think, but they always talk about the 22nd of April, I think it was, for Barrios and Ben. I would have rather seen that. But...
Do you know what it is for me, for Ben? I'd like to see Ben win a world title, a proper world title, defend a world title, become a multiple weight or multiple belt holding world champion. I don't like to see fighters like him and Eubank Jr. just dining out on their parents' name, because that's what they've done, pair of them. They've dined out on the dad's name. Eubank Jr., look, he's boxed for world titles, he's boxed in the Super 6, he's tried, and he's still trying. Do you know what I mean? And he's marketing himself well. Conor Ben's done nothing of the sort. Conor Ben's boxed at domestic level over here and in the States. He hasn't boxed anybody. Who's he boxed? Algeria?
Past the Algeria?
Who's been a chef for 4 years prior to boxing him. He's boxed. Who's the other kid that he knocked?
Chris Van Heerden, South Africa.
There's the one. Am I mixing him up with Algeria? Or has he boxed Algeria as well?
No, he boxed Algeria and Van Heerden. We're back to back. It's it's really interesting. So, and this is an argument that's being made by loads of people. So I'm not going to pretend I'm unique here. But the reality is, Conor Ben hasn't even won an area title, let alone an English, British, Commonwealth, European.
True.
For all the slander you can throw on Eubank Jr., at least he's fought for, won, and defended a British title.
Yeah.
Held a Commonwealth title. Like, we can...
That's what I'm saying. He's boxed at all the levels, hasn't he? He's
tried. The only thing he hasn't held is a European title, but he lost that against Billy Joe Saunders, and then he's not gone back to that opportunity. I mean, look, the IBO World Championship of the World will be on the line for this fight, which we all love. So there's something kind of, taking the piss, but that's true. Eubank can defend his IBO belt again. But what does it do? I wasn't overly keen on the fight as a, not just a boxing casual when it was first made for 2022. And now I
didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it, but look,
I want to see it even less.
Yeah, but we're going to do, because casuals buy into it. No, I agree, Pat. Just going back to your last comment, I didn't mean that it actually being signed and sealed, but the way that Eddie and Ben were talking there are some formalities to agree on. They've even agreed as it's Eubank Ben, not Ben Eubank. I think the ring walk goes with that as well. So they'd said that it was virtually done. What I mean is the fight's more than likely going to happen. I agree, and I know Liam agrees, that Ben should be fighting Barrios and trying to establish himself as a world champion, not just going. For me, these are like crossover fights, even though it's not. It's boxing. The jumping weight divisions for me, for name value, and that's just dining out on their father's reputations. But they haven't. Neither of them have. Eubank, if anything, is closer to his father in terms of what he's. He's boxed for world titles. He's I don't think his dad won a British, but his dad jumped that level. But, he's not mirrored his dad's career, but tried. As we said, he's tried. Ben hasn't done anything other than be Nigel Ben's son, for me.
Yeah, look, out of all the things we got to talk about, it's the one I want to talk about the least. And yes, before anyone says, when it comes to fight week, we will be covering it. With Sam back with us, we will cover it because it's a fight. It's going to garner a lot of interest, and we'll give our opinion on it. But I promise you, I will keep the same rhetoric I'm showing tonight. I may get a bit more excited if there's a good card put on it, but in terms of Conor Ben and Chris Eubank Jr. fighting, Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Ben fighting, make sure we get him on the left side of the poster. I don't have a lot of interest in seeing it. It could be dangerous. Same. That's the thing. It could be dangerous. Going back to Canelo and Crawford's, I don't know how I feel about this. Look, it's one of the best options out there for Canelo, other than fighting David Benavidez. But we know he's not going to fight Benavidez because he knows that what damage that could do to his legacy, because that's the next generation of Mexican boxing. But again, Terence Crawford started his career as a 130 fighter. He unified at 135. He unified at 135. He fought at 140, and now he holds 147, obviously, and now he holds belts at 154. But every time he fights, he's just bringing himself up to a level where it gets more and more dangerous. He knew Madrimov was a fight he could take, because although Madrimov is a big puncher, Madrimov isn't a big 154 pounder, so it was a safe fight.
But not struggled in spots, but it was difficult in spots of that fight, wasn't it?
So look, if they make this at 168, we'll watch it. I'll enjoy it, and I'm more keen to see it than I am with Ben and Eubank. But again, it's
got a fight in between. If it's September,
if
it's sorry to cut you, but if he's fighting, if the fight's made for September, he has to fight at 160 before then.
Yeah,
he's got to bridge that gap. He can't go 154, 168. And no. I didn't like the way he slowed right down in the Madrimov fight. You could see that the extra weight was taking its toll on him, and as I said, he didn't struggle, but it became more difficult than it should have been in spots of that fight.
Yeah, and Madrimov, if he thought Madrimov came forward and didn't leave him alone all night, he's got another thing coming with Canelo. That's the reality.
Canelo he'll just keep going.
In answer to this, which I'm assuming is about Ben Eubank,
I think it's fair.
I think it's the only way they could guarantee that Conor Ben wasn't going to be 30, 40 pounds lighter in the ring come fight night, if that makes sense. Because Conor, we know Eubank will go up quite a bit more.
And
still.
But Eubank's not a massive 168, is he?
No, but he said when he was at 168, he was fighting around 176. He's been honest about that. So from 160 to that would be a massive jump. Whereas Conor Ben will probably be lucky if he touches 163, 164 when he rehydrates, if we're being honest about it. So £10 is probably as fair as it could be.
Yeah. DJ Pat's asking, I guess it will be a major event in Las Vegas, Canelo versus Crawford, when and if it happens. Allegiant Stadium is to play under Mexican independence.
They'll either do it. I can see it being done at Allianz or Allegiant Stadium, or I can see it being done at the Sphere. Because Turkey, obviously,
I think Sphere for me.
Turkey funded UFC Noche when September last year when we got Canelo and Edgar Berlanga, and you know, he said, "I've done my UFC now, but I do want to bring a boxing event to it."
Might be that then.
So that I believe, it might be that, and that would look. Aesthetically and the visuals.
Oh mate, be amazing because they've got most of the stuff they need from USC, haven't they? I bet they'd use the similar production.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Mr. Neutral. I think Madrimov will beat Ortiz in a month's time.
Same. Yeah, I picked it from the start.
Me and you both did, yeah. Other fights wise, Conor only needs to weigh in at one. Is it not a 160 Neutral? So it's a catchweight fight then. What's the crack there? I thought I'd seen it was
that makes no sense if they're not both having to weigh in at the same weight. That's absolutely ridiculous. So what? Ben's at 155, Eubank's at 160, 168. It makes no sense for me, that.
That's a weird one. Other fights that are kind of... Anything else from Ring we want to cover? I mean...
Nothing really. They've offered...
Other than you'll like this one. So obviously we spoke about...
Got offered money to fight.
No, not that. Something even better that I think you'll like even more. So we dug out Ben Shalom last night for not being at the Boxer event in Sheffield because he decided to go to...
Sorry, 160 max, he says, which is, 160.
Okay. So we dug out Ben Shalom for choosing the ring ceremony over being at his own event in Sheffield. Do you want to know who decided not to be there to corner one of their own fighters?
JG, my best mate, cock-smoking Gallagher.
So it's one thing doing it as a promoter, and this is one of your prospects.
But he's on the Saudi payroll.
So he left it with Marcus Morrison. Who else? And one of his other fighters are in the corner looking after it.
Macaulay McGowan.
Yes, that's it. But for me, that's almost as unforgivable as the promoter not being there. It's one of your prospects that you're putting a lot,
Listen, I've seen that happen with Joe before. cornered my brother, or didn't corner my brother in Sheffield, I had to have him on the phone giving instructions to my brother because Gallagher didn't come across from Manchester to Sheffield.
So, look, it's not as surprising because I've learned from you and stuff we spoke about off camera about how Joe Gallagher handles his business, shall we say?
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't. It's again, it's if I'm that. Forgive me, the fighter's name escapes me, but if I'm that fighter, I'd be.
I mean, look, the fact that Joe Gallagher's got none of his original fighters left. None of them have anything to do with him, really. They've all left. They all left, other than Crawler. I think they all haven't had their last fights with.
Yeah, all the Smith brothers left him.
All the Smith left him. Paul Butler, I think, left. Charlie Edwards left.
Butler left after a new A. Charlie Edwards, we know, left because he couldn't handle not being the biggest star in the room. But if Joe Gallagher's in the room, then you're losing that battle.
Then you're never going to be that.
But yeah, it doesn't sit well with me. I mean, the argument would be, well, it's only a prospect in a 6th rounder rather than a bigger fight, but it shouldn't.
But matter. Are these the fights? No. For me, I'm not saying you're saying that, but my comeback to that is, well, hold on. These are the learning fights where you need your coach more than ever.
That's what I was about to say. It shouldn't matter if you're the curtain jerker, the first fight of the night, or you're the main event. Your trainer, if he's looking after you and got your best interests at heart, should always be there.
I mean, Macaulay McGowan is not a coach, really. He's an active fighter.
Marcus Morrison has his seconds license, is something I've seen. But
still, again, I mean, it's not a good look for me with a prospect just leaving him to two of your fighters. I'm not saying they can't do it, and they might turn out to be elite coaches, but ultimately he's put the Saudi money first, as they all do. Ben Shalom reckons he had to be there. He had fights and negotiations to make. All right, okay, we'll take that, but Gallagher is a trainer. What is he? A manager of a couple of fighters? He's a trainer, right? He's on the payroll. He runs the Saudi gym, doesn't he? So he knows where his bread.
He knows where his bread is, but
yeah, that shows me that he don't care about his fighters. Really, don't care about his fighters.
Yeah, come on. When I saw, I hadn't seen that till today. It was only today I saw that. Otherwise, I would have brought it up yesterday. But does it surprise me knowing stuff I've learned about Joe Gallagher? No, but it's not a good look, mate. It's not something.
But he don't care. He don't care. He's getting paid.
He had a nice night out in London. He got to spend a bit of time with Lawrence Okoli, who he's already told is going to be the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, and that's all he cares about. But let's go on to some positives, mate. Because off camera, I mean, we've been bigging up this Manchester card anyway because a couple of fighters we're really hot on have been announced on it. So those fighters, Jack Catterall, who we both like, and William Crawler, who you also remember from getting your tickets off of when Anthony was fighting. So we're both, and I'm hot on Will as a prospect as well. But that entire card has now been announced, hasn't it, mate? Talking about it off camera, it's Matchroom's best domestic show for me in about 2 years.
Yeah.
If we're being honest. And so I just get it up again here so we can go through it. And if this is a signal of intent of what's to come from Matchroom after a really flipping disappointing 2024, then I am all in for it. So to run through this card, Jack Catterall and Arnold Barbosa Jr. is the main event. It is now for the WBO interim world title, as we know. Look, you know where we stand on interim trinkets. They're a load of crap. But it's going to force the WBO's hand with what they do with Teo Lopez, which is good news if Jack Catterall wins because he's finally, hopefully, going to get a legitimate title.
Yeah.
Got the rearranged fight between Bellotti and Gomez Jr., which obviously fell off the fight night when Gomez Jr. went down with a kidney infection or whatever it was he had on that fight night. I'm glad to see that fight rearranged because for Gomez more than Bellotti, he had to have this opportunity, so I'm happy for it. You've got Zelfa Barrett and Jazza Dickens, which is an eliminator for the British title and is also for the WBA international title. When I saw this rumor yesterday, I said to you, we think Jazza may be past it, but if he's not, we're going to have the question answered of what does Zelfa Barrett have left. He obviously lost his world title fight out in Abu Dhabi back in 2022 it was. So that was a couple of years ago now. Does he have that desire to get back up there? We last saw Barrett stop Jordan Gill after 4 knockdowns from body shots last year. Look, his end goal's beyond British title, but if Jazz is only 33, even though this is about his 44th fight, if Jazz has got anything left, we'll find out in this fight. We also have the aforementioned William Crawler having a step up. I believe it's his first 8-rounder. Is that right, Jay?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so stepping up from 4 and 6. And we've also got McGrail fighting Ash Lane in an eliminator for the British title down at super featherweight.
That could be the fight of the night.
And Aqib Fayez as well, whose opponent hasn't been announced yet, so we'll leave that one until it's
But you said that's meant to be a step up, isn't it?
The opponent that's been talked about for that fight is a massive step up again. So that is an absolutely stacked card of boxing. And what we want to be seeing, before we break down the fights, mate, this is the... Oh, and also Pat McCormack and Robbie Davis Jr. Can't forget that fight as well. There you go, another fight.
Okay.
Before we go into breaking down the fights, mate, you've got to say this is the standard of cards we became accustomed to from Matchroom for a while, isn't it? When they were up towards the end of their run with Sky and the start of their DAZN run, this is the level of cards we were getting in terms of 2 of those fights I've just mentioned. They're going to have to go on before the bell. They're going to have to be on before the main DAZN card at 7 o'clock. That's the reality of how stacked it is. And it's been a long time since we've been able to say that about a Matchroom card, isn't it? We couldn't say it at all really in 2024.
No, it's been a long time coming. Matchroom have, they've put all their eggs in the Saudi basket, and and that's not paid. It's paid dividends for them as a business in terms of money that they've made, but in terms of the British and domestic market, it's took a massive hit, and I think it's about time that we saw a card that we were used to seeing 2 or 3 years ago. These were regularly on, as I said to you. I must have been to Manchester Arena 10 times maybe for fights, Crawler and John Murray and stuff, and they were always stacked. I've seen Terry Flanagan fight Nate Campbell. I've seen Audley Harrison fight Deontay Wilder. There's been some massive fights, big names. I've seen Jack Catterall on undercards, Lawrence Coley, Joshua. These are the kind of cards you want. You want your next generation of stars to be on the undercards, but also with some big 50-50 fights. There are a few 50-50 fights on that card. It's a good card. I'm excited for it, man.
Yeah, mate, you're right. And look, we had a conversation, didn't we, when we done our award show in hopes for this year with Sam. And we said, I said, definitely, I think you might have done as well. One of my hopes for this year is the money that Saudi is giving Eddie and Frank. We've seen Frank starting use it with the Magnificent 7 shows, which have been fantastic. And the one in December delivered again, headlined by Brad Pauls and Denzel Bentley. But we hadn't seen it from Eddie. This is a statement of intent early in the year from Eddie Hearn in terms of what level he's going to give us, hopefully, in the UK. Because we know the fighters that are going to go out to Saudi. We're at peace with it. We may not like it all the time, but we're at peace with the type of fights we're going to see.
It is what it is now. There's no point pushing against it. It's there. It's happening. So, we've just got to get on board now.
But this is fantastic. Look, Jack Catterall, I saw Jack Catterall fight when he was promoted by Frank Warren, Wembley Arena. It was on the undercard of Daniel Dubois and Richard Latte back in 2018, that was. And that 2018 or 2019. And that was when Jack was meant to be heading towards the world title shot then. I think it was coined as a keep busy fight before he gets his world title shot. Now, of course, COVID happens, but he also got let down by Queensbury. So he's had to move over to, he did, he signed a 1-fight deal with Top Rank to get the first fight with Josh Taylor. And then he's moved to Matchroom since then. I'm a big Jack Catterall fan. As you know, we've had numerous conversations. He is the crown king of the Who Needs Him club. And no one wants to fight him because it's such a high risk for very minimal rewards, but finally getting there, isn't he, mate? For me, Barbosa Jr. is a talented fighter. I like him, but I still think he's one of those American fighters whose mouth is going to try and cash checks that he's not ready to deliver in the ring in terms of what we've seen from Jack Catterall and the level he's fought and won at is higher than what we've seen from Barbosa Jr.
I mean, as you said, Jack, he's the king of Who Needs Him club. He's so good, but he's just too good that nobody's willing to take the risk. Barbosa's sort of been given an ultimatum. If you want to get to the world title, then you've got to fight this guy because this guy should be the unified world champion anyway. So I'm excited for Jack because I think he beats Barbosa, and then I'd like to see him fight Teo. I think if Jack turns up, he could make it look, I don't want to say easy, but easier than we expected.
It could be, look, it's so the records of these two blokes, they both had 31 fights. Jack is 30-1, Barbosa's 31-0. I mean, they both should be 31-0 going into this fight. So that's 62 fights between them that they without a defeat. But you go through the record of Barbosa. I mean, he lost to Sean McComb last year. I don't care what anyone says. Sean McComb beat Arnold Barbosa at the start of last year. And unfortunately, Barbosa was handed a homer decision. That's the reality of that fight. But, I mean, would you believe me if I said that this was going to be Barbosa Jr.'s first 12-rounder in his 32nd fight?
His first 12-rounder?
First 12-rounder. He's only ever done 10. The most he's ever fought is 10 rounds.
Has he not boxed? I thought he'd boxed for an interim before, no?
Nope. He's never boxed a 12-round fight before, whereas Jack Catterall has done
4 or 5.
1, 2, 3, 4. This is his 5th. No, sorry. 1, 2. This is his 7th. This is his 7th because he's won a British title, hasn't he? When he beat Tyrone Nurse back in 2017. So he's had, that tells you everything you need to know. That Barbosa, he's 31-0. He's been looked after by Golden Boy. Here we go, talking about a padded Golden Boy fighter record again, a la Jaime Munguia. But this is his first 12-rounder. So, look, I'm sure in Fight Week we'll get some comments from some of our American followers saying Brit bias, and we'll own it, is fair enough. But from what we've both seen with the eye test, Jack Catterall should win this fight, will win this fight for me, but he also has the potential to make it look polished and much more comfortable for him than possibly people are expecting it to be.
I think Barbosa's style's made for him. Come forward, hands up tight, look ducks low,
leave a nice body area like he done in the
second Taylor fight, left and right
to
body, and then I think he'll catch him with uppercuts coming in. Maybe not stop him, but I just think he'll outpoint him. I expect Jack to get UD in that fight.
Yeah, that's look. And then what happens? He either gets a shot at Tio Lopez or he gets upgraded to a full world champion, and then he can finally start doing what he should have been able to do in 2022. Only a couple of years too late. If he turns up and puts pressure. This is interesting, Pat, because obviously Catterall dropped Prograis twice, didn't he? And everyone talks about his power. It will be interesting if Barbosa gets frustrated. He's behind by 8, 9 rounds.
If he starts chasing him, then he'll get caught. That I could see a knockdown then, but I struggle to see how Jack breaks him down and stops him. I think Barbosa's chin is tested, battle worn, but Jack is elite. So, if he turns up, I expect him to win. I expect him to win this fight anyway.
Yeah.
Unless he gets caught cold himself. But we've seen he can take a shot himself. So, very interesting fight.
Yeah, definitely. And so, obviously, Reece Bellotti and Gomez Jr. was meant to happen on the Catterall program on the card. It fell off on fight night. Me and you have similar opinions on this. We both think that Gomez Jr. isn't quite on British level, and we think Reece Bellotti's streetwise enough to get through it. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think if Bellotti's got enough left, he should best Gomez Jr. in every aspect. I think he's faster. I think he's a little bit more skillful. I'm not dismissing Michael Gomez's chances. I just think that from what I've seen, I'm going on the eye test. I don't know everything, but I'm just going on the eye test, what I've seen. I've watched them both box live. I've seen a majority of the fights. And I just think that if Bellotti, he had a dip, didn't he? And then he seemed to come back. And he's improved every fight. And he had a couple of good wins. He was cannon fodder in his last one. Not his last one, the one before.
When he fought Liam Dillon at the Indigo, last February. Yep.
He was
brought in as someone that's been...
He was brought in as a name.
Yeah, brought in as a name for Liam Dillon. And then he went out and
dealt with him, and he's taken it and ran. So, look, I expect it to be a war. That's what I will say about this fight, because Gomez has only got one gear like his dad, and it's go forward. He's a little bit more reserved than his dad.
Yeah,
he doesn't. His dad just flipping marauded forward, where Michael is a little bit more tactical with his attacks and does try to box a little bit, but likes to tear up this nevertheless. Reece Bellotti is known as a puncher, so we'll be looking for that. So I expect this to be a war, but I expect Bellotti to get the win.
Look, Reece Bellotti fights in wars. Shock. Everyone's seen a Reece Bellotti fight. 90% of them are back and forth wars, even the ones that he should win fairly comfortably. And yeah, I'm not dismissing Gomez at all in this fight, but like you say, the eye test and where they've been, Belotti's proven at British and Commonwealth level and fringe European level, I go as far as to say. Gomez's best win is against Kane Baker for the English title. I know everyone needs opportunities to prove himself, and this could be where Gomez does it. But on the eye test, I favour Belotti and agree with it being a war. Pat McCormack and Davis Jr., it's a similar scenario. Pat McCormack, up and coming, needs the opportunities. We said we want to see him step up this year. This is a massive fucking jump. In terms of
you say that, we say that, but I've been very, very unimpressed with the last couple of fights we've seen from Robbie Davis Jr. I don't think he's ever been the same since he did his ankle.
No.
I think his last fight was terrible. It was awful to watch.
It was turgid.
He lost it by a round, I believe.
Won it by a round.
Should have lost it though, shouldn't he? Should have lost that last fight. I think I was meant to do a live with Sam and I was in Wales visiting my grandson, so I couldn't really get reception. I was travelling back. Yeah, look, if McCormack is half as good as he's been touted, then I think he goes through Robbie Davis Jr. in 5 or 6 rounds.
Yeah, mate, I don't disagree with you. I mean, Davis Jr. is now with Ant Crawler, so this is his third fight with Ant, and we've seen he's a happy fighter, which is always dangerous.
Fantastic. Yeah,
and he wasn't always happy being down in London with McGuigan because he was so far away from home. He's come out and said, I like Shane McGuigan. I like what him and Josh Pritchard done for me, but I wasn't happy because I was so far away from being at home, which, you have to respect the honesty there. He's being honest with himself and he's basing himself closer to home now with Ant. Liverpool to Manchester isn't anywhere near as far
45 minutes or so, innit?
So it's an interesting one, but Pat McCormack, he's at a level, steps up, carries on, keeps going.
The only thing for me is I'm not sure that McCormack's are as devoted 24/7 to the sport that they should be, if that makes any sense, without crossing the line.
I can agree with the assumption without needing to say any more.
I think they're good at camps, but I don't necessarily believe that they live the life. I'm not saying they do anything they shouldn't be doing, but I just believe that they do camps rather than live the life 24/7. Let's just say I think they like to have fun. I think they like to have fun, and I think the age that they're at, they can have fun when they've retired, because they're the wrong side of 20 for a prospect, aren't they? They're both knocking on because they were elite amateurs, so they stayed amateur long for the Olympics. So they've got to make a run at it now if they're going to do anything within the game. So I'm expecting a McCormack win. I think Davis Jr. could test him, but I just think if McCormack's as good and turns up, then he should have a little bit too much for Davis Jr. Also, Davis Jr. is a natural lightweight, super feather. He's not a welterweight, is he? Light welterweight.
He's not. He's coming up for opportunities. We can agree on that. But also ordered as an eliminator for the British title. So look, whoever comes through this gets a British title shot, which is Robbie Davis may not be interested in the British title at this point in his career if he was to pull off a victory. But for Pat McCormack, it's the
first step
he was talking about wanting to see. We've already covered Jazza and Zelfa. William Crawler, we've said we believe it's an 8-rounder, which is a step up from the 4s and 6s he's been doing.
Yeah.
And we can't. Akeem Fayez, his opponent, isn't official, so we're going to leave that for now.
We'll talk later on in week when maybe we get some announcements on opponents. We can revisit it.
Look, for coming back for your first fight since losing to Reece Belotti after having all of 2024 out, it's a risky fight to come back into potentially against someone who's proven himself at English level. And we're going to find out what Fayez has spent the last 12 months doing, if that makes sense. Has he been looking to improve as a fighter, or has he had 12 months off because he lost the heart and he's
going to have had to have improved, because if not, he'll lose. And I think another loss for him is devastating.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what you're saying, mate. But yeah, look, it's something to get excited about, isn't it? We have.
Oh yeah, look, man, the next couple of months are hotting up, as you say. That there's some big fights, there's some big cards. There's potentially some great nights, some great matchups. I'm really excited for January, February, and March.
Yeah, mate, it's exciting times for boxing, and as we were, something if you look out for the STBX YouTube channel tomorrow, I done a show with Steve and Darren Aston where the topic was, is Queensbury moving over to Zone a good thing for boxing? I mean, you can watch the video to find out my opinion on that, but that's coming in April, mate, and that's very exciting. We're going to get the 2 premier British promoters on one platform. That is very exciting.
Love it. Because the fights can be made, just off sort of topic, but we're talking about Ben Whittaker and Liam Cameron and the back and forth and the back and forth and the back and forth. Fights like that can be made when promoters are on the same plan. I know Boxer are not. I'm just using that as an example. But, say Boxer lose their Sky deal or Sky don't renew, not lose the deal, but don't renew, explore other avenues, and they get swallowed up by DAZN. You have all your promoters on the same. They've got to work together. The fights can be made. There's no arguing over TV deals and stuff like that, and not wanting to be on that fight. Or we see, we've seen it before where we've seen pay-per-views on both channels, and I just think it's silly, man. Just agree a deal, have it on one platform, and we go from there. Let's have a look. What's DJ Pat's just put a comment in. There was some buzz that after Tiara Brown fight and Unify for Sky, they might try to do a fight with Alicia Baumgardner. There are many good fights to make them out on the 2025 also. Yeah, I think we touched on this yesterday, didn't we? We were on about Baumgardner for one of the girls. Sky don't look like she's got anything due. She's doing more presenting and social media posting than anything at the moment. I'm hoping they've got something in the works for her.
She's fighting March 22nd in Sydney on the Cambosis Junior card, is what she was saying last week, and that looks like it's going to get announced soon.
I hope so.
Paddy Donovan, Lewis Crocker launch press conferences Wednesday. Matchroom has said there'll be undercard announcements on that, so there's another card for the 1st of March. Mate, it's exciting times, and if this is just domestically, we haven't touched on Benavides Morel, we haven't touched on Diego Pacheco, Andy Cruz, Inoue next week. Okay, it's underwhelming from Inoue, but it's Inoue, one of the pound-for-pound greats. It's a great start to the year, mate, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, just before we go, DJ Pat, they were talking about a crossover fight, Queensbury versus Matchroom, as the first event at DAZN in April.
Well, I mean, Lee Wood isn't officially with Matchroom anymore, but Kakashi Wood was what they were talking about for that, isn't it?
Yeah. That would be fantastic. I'm really excited, as we've said. It's an exciting time. I think we've just done an hour there, Liam. So I think we'll call it a day on that. So thank you very much for joining me. Shout outs to everybody that's interacted and joined us this evening, Mr. Neutral, DJ Pat, Hawkan. Thank you very much for all your comments. Colin Smith, thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in, Liam. As always, man, thanks for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate that. You can catch Liam on X, Liam_Tully9, as it says down there. As he said, STBX, we've got Liam's Fight Night picks coming back next week, but Liam has just done a show with Steve and Darren Aston, which you can catch on STBX's YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure it'll be on tomorrow.
Yep.
So you can catch that tomorrow. As always, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thanks for joining us. Keep punching.